Now, the February 2034 bond traded at 20.7% following news of the Debt Management Office special bond auction. Meanwhile, the recently issued 2027 bond witnessed offers at around 19.9%. Traders at Access Bank also say they expect an active bond market today as investors cherry-pick high-yielding instruments. Tobechukwu Ikpe, Treasury Team Member at Access Bank, now joins me for more market updates as we wrap up the week. Tobechukwu, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Before we get into the further movement of what we've seen so far following this week's this week's auction, let's talk about market response to the CBN's claim on clearing the verified FX backlogs and how this has also induced some level of calm into the market, especially on the back of developments we've seen so far within the FX space and whether or not we are having improved levels of liquidity.
Okay, thank you for having me, David. So you're right, the CBN announced that they cleared the backlog of FX claims, the valid and the legitimate claims that they had outstanding, amounting to about $1.5 billion 2 days ago. And the impact of that in the markets has been an appreciation of the Naira. The week opened for the USD NGN quote at around 1.6 levels, but yesterday we saw it close at 1.453 for the NAFEM rate. So we've seen significant appreciation in the price levels of the Naira against the USD.
And also talking about what to expect in the new week as well, we also have in focus the Central Bank of Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee. Just like the conversation I had here in the studio with Femi Olade, he says most likely we might have a hold stance or a more conservative approach, say about 50, maximum 100 basis point rate hike. Let's talk about the rate environment and how this would also whet the appetite for investors going forward. Yes, we've heard from the CBN governor. We're going to see the frequency of OMO auctions also increase, bigger sizes of T-bills and bond auction. We've seen that pan out and the results so far. Let's talk about what to expect in the coming weeks as investors wait and see ahead of next week.
Okay, so the general expectation for the MPC meeting that is holding next week on the 25th and 26th is that the committee would hike rates further. General consensus is around 100 basis points hike to 24.75, given that the governor himself was even at the last committee meeting supportive of a larger than 400 basis point hike, which they eventually did. So you might see further hawkish stance from the CBN and its committee when they meet next week, given the persistent rise in inflation, where it closed at 1.7. Food inflation continues to be spiraling due to several structural challenges and security issues. But for now, the market feels that there's still a bit more headroom for higher interest rates in the market.
And talking about headroom for higher interest rates at the markets, we also heard the CBN governor also say, well, we should see stop rates also inch closer towards the MPR benchmark. But let's talk about investor leanings across the yield curve. Overview of the month of March, what we should also expect as we are winding down.
So for the month of March, next week, as you said, there will be an MPC committee meeting. Most people are waiting to see for the outcome of that meeting, the decision that will be made there. That will dictate the sentiment for the rest of the month. There's also an NCB auction next week, which we hold. So that auction will be key in finding out the direction of interest rates that the central bank aims to pursue in the near term. We've seen them issue treasury bills, one-year treasury bills at just above 21% discount rates, which amounts to a yield of about 27%. So if they continue to focus on their word of targeting inflation, we may see that rates even go higher next week at the T-bills auction. So a lot of market participants are cautious about that. Like we could still see more room for higher rates in the short-term securities.
So we'll leave the conversation here for now and keep our fingers crossed to see how things pan out come next week. Thank you so much for your time on the show today. That was Tobechukwu Ikpe, Treasury Team Member at Access Bank.